Wednesday last week saw the Tobacco and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill presented again to Parliament's Health Committee. And this seeks to regulate the use and trade of tobacco products, including cigarettes, e-cigarettes, and vape pods, and it tightens up on a whole lot of things, and it significantly increases the penalties for doing things wrong, and it contains some things which I think are over the top, like, you shouldn't smoke if you're in a car with children. You shouldn't smoke if in your house if you have young children. You shouldn't. But I'm not sure that you should have the threat of jail time hanging over you if you do. And that's in the bill. And there has been inevitably an aggressive response negative to it from the industry. That is to be expected. But there are also people who are not industry shills who are saying, hold on a second, there hasn't been close to the necessary public participation around this bill as our constitution requires there to be. We are joined now by Professor Corne van Walkbeek, who's Director of the Research Unit on the Economics of Excisable Products, otherwise known as REAP, based at UCT. Corne, hello.
Yes, good afternoon, John. Lovely being on your show.
Is this bill necessary, or are large parts of this bill necessary in your view?
John, South Africa is a member of the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. This was an international agreement that was passed in 2003 and became effective in 2005. And basically what it tries to do is to reduce the very, very detrimental, harmful impact of tobacco use in all the countries that have signed up to this agreement. South Africa, as a member of this international convention, has got some legislation in place that tries to meet the requirements that have been set by the Framework Convention. But many of the things have become very much outdated. Some of the legislation was basically a compromise at the time when it was implemented in 2008 and before that in 1999. And also what we see that over the past 15 or so years, e-cigarettes and other novel nicotine products have come onto the market. So the Department of Health has quite correctly decided that it's time to update the legislation, in fact, to replace the legislation that was implemented in 1993 and to replace it by a completely new piece of legislation. And there are a number of things that this legislation is trying to do. Amongst others, they want to introduce so-called plain packaging and pictorial health warnings. They want to ban point-of-sale advertising at the point of sale. They want to ban vending machines. And I think most critically and importantly, they also want to regulate these novel tobacco and nicotine products as though they are tobacco products. So that's
which
the background
which that industry says is wrong, because that industry says, and that industry would say, that there's plentiful evidence to suggest that these are pathway habits away from the more serious traditional nicotine habit.
Absolutely. So our research has indicated that e-cigarettes basically can play two roles. They can be, three roles. They can be used for dual use, where people are smoking both tobacco products and these e-cigarettes. They can be an on-ramp where people start using e-cigarettes and then eventually, if the word is graduate to cigarette products and tobacco products, or they can be an off-ramp. So what this legislation is not doing is to ban these products. It's trying to regulate them. So I think that the e-cigarette industry, somewhat disingenuously, is trying to present this as a ban on e-cigarettes. It's not. It's an attempt to regulate them, and for good reason, because if one has a look at the profile of who is using the e-cigarettes, there's most of the use takes place amongst the young people. Anybody below the age of 30. Many of these are people who have never smoked a cigarette in their life, and they are now addicting themselves to a product with unknown health consequences. Many people think that they are less harmful than cigarettes. The evidence for that is suggestive, but it's certainly not definitive that they are less harmful than normal tobacco products. Yes, they have been used by some people, especially older people, as sort of an off-ramp from uh, other tobacco products, and that is a good thing. And sometimes they are able to quit tobacco use completely by using e-cigarettes, and that needs to be applauded. So what this legislation is trying to do is effectively saying, let's reduce the harmful impacts of the e-cigarettes and let's maximize the potential positive impacts of this new product.
One of the other criticisms of the bill, and I take your point that South Africa is under international obligation to pass this kind of bill, but the criticism is, what's the point of changing the law when the law as it is so much flouted and will continue to be. And the biggest health problem around cigarettes is the illegal manufacture of untaxed cigarettes, which I'm told the evidence shows is becoming much more of a choice, and that people are buying cheap and poorly manufactured cigarettes which do nothing for excise collection and which do a lot of damage to health, more damage than conventional cigarettes and the new technologies. So fix that. If you're serious about the health impact of nicotine, then fix that aspect and don't worry so much about these pernickety little things.
Yes. So, John, you and I, we've talked in the past about the illicit trade problem, and the illicit trade problem is a very, very serious problem in South Africa. Our research suggests that more than 50% of cigarettes sold in South Africa are, in fact, illicit, and that is a major, major problem in South Africa, and it's something that deserves a lot of attention. And it seems as though the Revenue Authority is taking it more seriously, and I hear sort of the right noises being made by SARS commissioner and other people that they are wanting to address it. However, I don't think that it's a case of either or. One can have both a situation where you are addressing the illicit trade problem and implementing strategies that will make cigarettes less accessible. For instance, if you are going to ban point of sale advertising, whether the cigarettes are legal or illicit, that will have a positive public health effect. If you are going to introduce plain packaging and pictorial health warnings, if there are cigarettes that are being sold that do not have plain packaging or pictorial health warnings, then by definition they would be illegal, and in principle the government would be in a better situation to confiscate or to try and control those kinds of cigarettes that do not have those rather grotesque pictorial health warnings on them. At the same time, if one looks at the e-cigarettes, and the e-cigarette industry has been making a lot of noise, basically arguing that the government should rather focus on the things that it should be doing, like curbing illicit trade. I think it's a deflection mechanism. And the deflection mechanism sits in the fact that they want the government to let them go and to basically advertise freely in a pretty much unregulated market by letting the industry do what it's been doing for the past number of years. And that is basically getting product out, often to underage and very young non-cigarette smokers. So yes, they make the noise and say, we are here to help public health. At the same time, they are also there to line their own pockets by selling to as many people as would want to buy these products.
Thank you very much, Professor Corne van Walkbeek, Director of the Research Unit on the Economics of Excisable Products.